Hi, everyone, and welcome to F-Bomb Friday. I am your host, Tracy Preston, along with my husband, Todd. Hey, hon.
Hey, baby.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
Let's hit it. On today's show, we will be talking about the Michigan Merman. Mermaids and mermen are fabled marine creatures with the head and upper body of a human and the tail of a fish. The first known mention in human history of a human figure with a fish tail is from about 5,000 BC, where Babylonian mythology of the god of Ea described him as having the body of both a man and a fish. Ea was later known by the gods as Ornis, and by some Semitic tribes as Dagon. One of the earliest mermaid legends appeared in Syria about 1000 BC. A Targatis, a beautiful goddess, fell in love with a mortal man named Adad, who was a shepherd. Artagadis, unaware of her own power and beauty, accidentally killed her lover Adad. Grief-stricken and distraught, Artagadis jumped into the lake to relinquish her goddess powers and beauty and turned into a fish. The other gods, unwilling to let our goddess lose her beauty, stopped the transformation before it was complete. Her bottom half turned into the body of a fish, while the top of her body kept her female form and beauty. The ancient Greek epic poet Homer wrote about mermaids in the Odyssey. In Chinese mythology, mermaids were described as skillful and versatile beings whose tears would turn into pearls. It was also said that the mermaids were the wives of powerful sea dragons and served as trusted messengers between their spouses and the emperors on land. In Haiti and Nigeria, mermaids are known to seduce sailors and lure them to their deaths. Mermaids are sometimes associated with perilous events such as floods, storms, shipwrecks, and drownings. Other folk traditions suggest that they can be benevolent and or beneficent, bestowing favors, or even falling in love with humans. The male equivalent to a mermaid is the merman. Although traditions about and reported sightings of mermen are less common than those of mermaids, they are in folklore and are generally assumed to coexist with their female counterparts. The male and female are collectively referred to as merfolk or mer people. One of the most well-known historical accounts of mermaid sightings is by Christopher Columbus. On January 9th, 1493, Columbus reported in his journal that he saw 3 mermaids while sailing in the Caribbean. He wrote that the mermaids were not half as beautiful as they were depicted in paintings. The lack of their beauty was easily explained after Columbus realized what he had witnessed were not mermaids, but in fact, manatees. In Native American culture, mermaids are often depicted as water spirits, associated with rivers and lakes, with various tribes having their own versions of mermaid lore, sometimes seen as benevolent beings and as potentially dangerous creatures who could lure people into the water. These figures are often described as beautiful women with fish tails living at the bottom of the deep waters and sometimes associated with trickery or warnings about the dangers of the waters. Different tribes have their own names and stories for mermaids, with variations in their appearance and role within the mythology. Water spirits are mermaid-like creatures and are often considered to be guardians of the water, representing both the beauty and the power of the natural world. Some stories portray these water spirits to be mischievous and even dangerous, capable of luring humans to their deaths in the water. In Cherokee mythology, mermaids are often found in deep rivers, sometimes described as having the ability to lure children into the water. A Passamaquoddy tribe tells stories of the Heenwas, a mermaid creature who can be associated with transformation and often is helpful for humans. In nearly every culture in every corner of the globe, myths, legends, and lore of the merfolk have been a constant in the lives of man for thousands of years, inspiring tales, books, art, and music with magic, mystery, romance, and tragedy. It's safe to say that our fascination with the merfolk will continue to live on for thousands more. With many stories of the merfolk depicted as half fish and half beautiful woman, singing alluring songs of the sea and leading men to sunken treasures, the story I'm about to tell you does not fit that description. The date is May 3rd, 1782. A Canadian fur trader named Venant Saint Germain, along with 3 traveling companions, set up camp on Pie Island. Now, Pie Island is located between Ontario and Isle Royale in Lake Superior, Michigan's largest and most northern Great Lake. As Saint Germain and his fellow travelers sat on the beach just before sunset, a strange creature appeared above the water's surface, just about 75 yards offshore. He described the creature as having the upper part of its body formed exactly like that of a human being, about the size of a 7 or 8-year-old child. The creature bore an exact resemblance to those of the human race. It had brilliant eyes and a raised hand of fully formed fingers and a dark complexion. Saint Germain's first instinct was to grab his gun. As he took aim and was just about to shoot the creature, an elderly Ojibwe woman tackled him and wrestled the fur trader to the ground and prevented the man from firing his weapon. As the two struggled over the rifle, the merman ducked out of sight and disappeared underwater. The old woman explained to Saint Germain that killing a merman was bad luck, further explaining that mermen and mermaids were gods and goddesses of the lakes, and even attempting to kill one would bring devastating storms. And sure enough, just as the native woman said, for the next 3 days, storms with extremely strong gale force winds caused massive damaging waves which destroyed the ship, leaving all on the island stranded. Eventually, thereafter, while telling his tale of the encounter, Saint Germain meets another traveler who claimed to have seen the exact same creature. This further solidified his belief and his retelling of his remarkable experience. The story of the merman of Lake Superior became so popular and widespread that in 1812, he was virtually forced to provide a sworn testimony of the account in a Canadian court. It seems Saint Germain's bad luck did not end with the severe storms and subsequent shipwreck on the island. In 1821, Saint Germain's life would be brought to an end by an accidental shooting. A friend of the retired fur trader aimed an old shotgun at him, believing the shotgun to be non-functional, and in an attempt to be humorous, pulled the trigger. Well, who had the last laugh then, I wonder?
That was some bad juju right there, right? So, moral of the story is if you do run into merfolk, leave them alone. Leave them alone, because it'll only bring bad luck on you.
Well, can I just ask you, who points a gun at their friend?
Right.
That's not even funny.
It's not funny at all.
I mean, I know it's in the 1800s, but
Right.
gun safety is gun safety.
Exactly. Well, we've seen people do stupid stuff too, and it's like, who the hell does that? I'm sure it happens back then too.
True. Very true.
So, isn't this interesting though? Because I never really knew of any other stories about merfolk other than the Hans Christian Andersen story with the Little Mermaid. That's how mermaids were depicted in my brain.
Right, like they're lovely and beautiful.
Right.
Agreed. And Peter Pan.
Peter Pan.
Right? So all of us as kids in the 70s and 80s, and I don't know when Peter Pan came out, maybe the 60s. But yeah, depicted as beautiful and frolicking and fun-loving and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But there was, I'm trying to think, wasn't there a remake of Peter Pan where the mermaids were actually quite nasty?
Yeah.
Like they were real beautiful, but oh boy, could they turn in a second. Because they wanted to kill you. They wanted to drown you.
Right. And the mermaids in the Harry Potter movie too. I mean.
Oh, they were pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
They were quite scary.
Yeah. So, but here's some cool things. But I found out that there's just some examples of different merfolk and different cultures. And when I say mermaids have been in legends and folklore since the beginning of time, I truly mean it. I mean that they've just been around forever. Nereids in Greek mythology were sea nymphs who sometimes had fishtails and sometimes had legs. So they kind of had the best of both worlds. Kind of like the Little Mermaid. She was able to either be one or the other, but she couldn't be both. Well, these merfolk, they could do whatever they wanted.
I want to be one of those.
Exactly. That's a cool thing. The Meros in Irish folklore are sea fairies with green hats or combs that allow them to transform from merfolk to humans. So again, they get the best of both worlds.
Don't lose that special comb is what I got to say.
Right. This one cracks me up. Iniguos in Japanese folklore, they are fish-like creatures with monkey mouths. And what cracks me up is I'm wondering if this was the inspiration for the sea monkeys, when we were kids. Of course, the sea monkeys never looked like what they did on the package, but which was disappointing.
Always disappointing.
Jingwei in Chinese folklore, they are mythical creatures with upper body of a woman and the lower body of a fish. Plus, it's something a little extra. They have delicate wings as well.
A flying merfish.
Yeah.
Like a flying merman.
Like a angelfish. The Risalki in Slavic folklore, they are water nymphs who were originally thought to be benevolent spirits of fertility and agriculture. The Suvano Maka in Southeast Asian folklore is a mermaid princess whose name means golden fish. So she was a goldfish mermaid. Mamiwata in African folklore is a water goddess who honors sacred nature of water. And Yok Yok and the G. Merdiwi in Australian Aboriginal folklore, they're mermaids that swim in rivers and oceans. So they can go back and forth between freshwater and saltwater.
Well, that's very interesting. I find it interesting that seems like all areas of the world have stories of mermaids. I wonder why.
It's the imagination.
Is it the imagination, or is it just being on the water for so long that maybe you hallucinate a little bit?
Well, I know like in Christopher Columbus, his case, seeing the manatee for the first time, those aren't in Europe. They're over here, in the warmer waters. So seeing them for the first time, he just kind of made up his own assumption. And then somebody went, "Nah, dude, they're not mermaids. They're actually sea mammals."
And Christopher Columbus, probably had this vision in his mind of this beautiful, beautiful mermaid. And if he saw that one, he'd probably think, "Oh, she ate a lot." Because they're kind of big.
Yeah, they're not as pretty as they're depicted in the paintings.
No, they're real fat.
There was a suggestion that Christopher Columbus, he made sure he put it in his notes and stuff because he was trying to play up, so he could get all these people to be interested in coming over. Yeah, we got mermaids over here, man. You ought to come and check it out.
I hop on my boat because a lot of fellows died of scurvy. That's awesome. I don't know how I'd feel about that. I mean, I used to do, scuba diving. I've seen, pretty cool things. I don't know how I'd feel about a mermaid. I'd probably be really scared.
I think I'd be freaked out a little bit.
Yeah. And the thing is that you're powerless in the water.
Right.
As a human. Where are you going to go? Just relinquish because a couple little flips of that tail and they gotcha.
Well, anything in the water, really, because you're out of your element.
Mm-hmm.
They're in their element. So,
yeah,
I mean, you're at a disadvantage right away. Plus, when you get these dark waters, especially like Lake Superior. Now, the description of this merman, he had a darker complexion. Now, some said like a dark green, some said like a dark blue, some said like a dark, almost a black color. It is said that merfolk will assume the color of their surrounding waters, which makes sense. Lake Superior is pretty dark. It's a pretty dark body of water.
Deep, dark, and cold, baby.
Deep, dark, and cold. Also makes you wonder, if these merfolk had anything to do with some of these shipwrecks.
Right, like they wanted to sink the ship because they wanted treasure?
Well, no,
Treasure.
Well, the storms were brought on. That guy, was just attempted to shoot this merfolk. And that was enough to piss him off, and the merfolk made storms for 3 days that damaged the ship. True. So, what if these guys were on their boats and they're firing away at merfolk that are just doing their thing and swimming and then all of a sudden they're never to be seen again.
Well, and a good ship underwater is a nice little place to have a house.
Yeah.
If you're a merman.
Right.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, if you're a merfolk, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then even Aquaman. See, he was a merman. Merfolk.
He is merfolk.
That was actually a pretty cool movie. I loved how they did the Atlantis.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Atlantis under there and how pretty the mermaids were.
Yeah. Plus, he's kind of like eye candy for the women.
Yeah. If I was a mermaid, I would want my bottom half to be golden.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like the golden fish, the princess golden fish.
Yeah, that's who I want to be. What was her name?
Her name was, it's like the hardest one to say too. Ready?
I'm bringing it up just so you'd say it again.
Suvanamaka.
Suvanamaka. That's what I want to be. What about you?
I would want to be like Poseidon. I want to try it.
Okay, well, thanks for one-upping me. Well, hon,
What'd you think about that story?
I think it was a pretty good story. Everybody has I don't think there's a single human being who hasn't heard of a mermaid before.
Right.
And it's kind of interesting how basically it goes all the way back to the beginning of time.
Exactly. Yeah, I was going back and I was like seeing carvings in these on these Babylonian tablets and stuff with these half men, half fish. I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting.
Perhaps it isn't folklore after all.
Who knows?
Who knows? Waters are real deep.
Yeah.
Well, count me in. Well, what do you say? You want to sign us out, hun?
I sure do. You better lock your doors. You better lock your windows. And you might want to check under your bed.
You might have 3 witches like I did. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
See you on Monday.